Welcome to Trifecta Collective, Finding the Root with Megan and Shannon, the podcast, where we dive deep into all things health and wellness to help you find health and healing inside and out for now and forever. Hello, and welcome to Trifecta Collective, Finding the Root with Megan and Shannon. I am Megan Abbott, owner and founder of the holistic health practice Trifecta Collective. And today I'm actually by myself and doing a solo episode here again. And Shannon will be back. Some things have come up, so we're recording this by myself today. And I don't have a great title for today's episode yet. And I'm hoping by the time this comes out, we will have thought of a better one here. But I thought today, since I'm by myself, I would talk about a few big topics, burnout probably being the largest of them, of how does burnout happen, or what does it look like? What does it feel like? How do we try and start to get ourselves out of this burned out state? How do we prevent this? And I also kind of want to touch on, what it's like to have a big job, to run a business, to be chronically sick and have to work through a lot of these issues here, and what are some things to do to help out. And I'm talking, I'm going to talk big picture stuff, but I am going to give a lot of recommendations here, and probably some things to really think about that have shifted for me. This, you don't know, and I don't know if I've shared this a ton, but I actually ran my first business when I was 22. I was an outside sales company, and I was working crazy hours. If I wasn't working 80 hours, I'd be terribly surprised in a week. And I was in the sales industry, and it was a lot of young people. I was young. I was fresh out of college. We're pretty fresh out of college, and drinking and partying and not taking the best care of myself was a really big thing. And I did that for many years until right around my mid-20s. And around that time, I really did start to feel the burnout, and I was not taking care of myself. In my early 20s, I had also been in an abusive relationship. I was not eating the best. Not that I was eating terrible, but definitely not the best. I was still drinking quite a bit and using that as a pretty significant coping mechanism. Sleep wasn't good. I was drinking all kinds of coffee and energy drinks and all kinds of stuff. And, I eventually left and left that business. And I was in a partnership at this time to be in the fitness industry. And I ran a big box gym and was part of a franchise there. And I was the youngest person out of all of the managers. I was also the only woman. And there was struggles that came along with that. And I was working quite a bit then as a general manager. I was also still teaching group classes and managing. And I'd get calls at 4:35 a.m. I won't say all the time, but way more often than I'd like. And, issues would pop up in sales and hiring and people managing. And most people who work in a lot of gym facilities tend to be on the younger side. And, I was still pretty young, and I knew what it was like to be 18 years old and working a part-time job and everything that came along with that. And, when I left that position, I ended up running a personal training franchise for someone else. And I was also actively personal training at that time. And then I was also doing some group kickboxing classes. And then I got in my accident, and I did that for several years. And then I decided to launch this business while I was still doing a lot of those things. And, if you've ever run a business, it's hard. It's hard running a business, a small business in particular. And it's very challenging. And I know it's not just running a business. I know I've worked with so many men and women in the corporate industry and, entrepreneurs and women who are managing household and and being rock star moms and doing all the things and trying to be superwoman. And look, it catches up to us at some point. And I am no stranger to burnout. I have burned out more times than I would probably like to admit. Especially doing what I do now, running this business, I've really burnt myself out. Especially, when I could or when I had to, whether that was for financial reasons or the business was really starting to grow. It takes a lot of time, and a lot of energy. Once again, no stranger to working 50, 60, 70, 80 hours in a week, taking no time off, not being good at decompressing, not being able to turn things off, checking emails, checking socials, checking all of the things. And then let alone, when you start, then you get comfortable running your business and then it starts to grow. And then you have to, bring other people on and train and grow and expand. And there's constant adaptation and what do you want to do? And then, if you're doing your own work, which is very much the case for me, I've been doing a lot of detailing work on my own for many, many years now. My desire and how this business looks and how I show up in the business and my roles in the business have really shifted over the years, which always bring about a lot of shifts, a lot of change, a lot of stress, usually extra work. And once again, I have not always managed it great. And I want to share a lot of the mistakes that I've made and, where I am now. And things have shifted a lot for me, particularly this year, with all of the changes. And I did get burnt out and it was not necessarily for business reasons, but I was really pouring from an empty cup for a while, in my transitionary period. And so I've been here. I also have a history of cortisol issues and hormonal imbalances. I was perimenopausal before the age of 30. All the gut issues. I've had thyroid autoimmune issues and hypothyroid. So the fatigue, the hair loss, all of the skin changes and trying to show up on social media. And anytime I personally do detox work, it always shows up as skin issues on my face immediately. And so kind of overcoming and working through, I won't say overcoming, it's more working through those as they pop up. You have a lot of strategies and that's just me, let alone, I've worked in this particular field for over 4 years now, about 4.5 years. And I've worked with some really high powered individuals with really big jobs. Once again, whether that's in the home, in a workplace, running their own business, working in corporate. And then even before then, in my years of personal training, worked with a lot of people with some really significant big jobs and roles and responsibilities. And so I've seen all of this time and time again. And there are some really, I think, proven strategies for helping you get out of this burnout state and also preventing it. So I want to start with more of, what does burnout feel like? What is this? How does this often show up for us physically, mentally, emotionally? How do we end up here? And then how do we start to work our way out of it? And then I'll kind of reflect back on what are some signs that you might be starting to get there, and how do we start to make some shifts so you don't get into full burnout mode? And I feel like I personally have gotten pretty darn good now at recognizing very early signs of when I start to do too much, I'm stressing too much, and how to start to make some shifts. And what does that look like to make sure my body's supported, once again, physically, mentally, emotionally, so that I don't end up in that place. So what does this often feel like? So, and certainly physical symptoms will overlap here. If you are burnt out, it's a pretty fair assumption that you have cortisol dysregulation issues. There's a good chance you're going to have gut issues. Possible you're going to have thyroid dysregulation issues, sex hormone imbalances, not uncommon, cognitive issues. All of these things can kind of come along here. So I'm going to talk more from a symptom perspective and also understand there's a lot of things at play here. So chronic fatigue is probably one of the biggest ones, where you're just tired all of the time. And yeah, maybe the caffeine and some of these more upper kind of supplements may help a little bit, but it's almost for me, it always feels like a really deep and intense fatigue. And it feels physical for sure. Like my body feels really heavy, but it really is also like mental and emotional. Like I'm just not mentally there. I'm exhausted. Emotionally, I'm exhausted. I don't have any room for anything else. And that is probably for me, and I know for a lot of other people that I've worked with, this is often the case. You're probably going to have some sleep issues. Usually it's going to revolve around trouble falling asleep and or staying asleep, having trouble turning your brain off. Anxiety were really common. For some, this also comes through as depression. And this, for me, anxiety feels very similar to a high cortisol kind of situation where the brain's always going, can't turn it off, can't drop into my body, or very challenging to drop back into my body, to feel into my body, very stuck in my head, often feels really cloudy in my head, just this like nervous type of energy of, wanting to go out, wanting to do these things that I know may help me feel better, but almost being paralyzed and not being able to. Depression for me feels like more I'm tired all the time and I can't get myself to do anything. And all I want to do is sleep. Sometimes all I want to do is cry. And I just feel completely drained is kind of more of how my depression shows up. And I know this is pretty common for a lot of people. And that's how depression shows up for a lot of people. And anxiety is almost this like, I need to do all of the things and your brain's thinking about all of these things, but this almost like paralysis of not being able to start and really do a lot of these things. It'll also, cognitive issues really common. You were once really clear and sharp and very focused. And then all of a sudden there's this shift of, gosh, you have trouble concentrating and trouble focusing. Maybe you're working on your computer and you keep being drawn to your phone and keep looking at your phone or keep looking at socials or, just being really distracted and have this trouble concentrating and trouble recalling memory issues, short-term memory issues. Like you just can't remember people's names or things that used to be really simple to remember. It becomes very, very challenging. And so these are really common. For me, when I'm burnt out, my gut just is a mess. I feel bloated a lot. It's just like my belly doesn't feel very good. Often for me, just because of my trauma history and how my default patterns can show up, I'll usually start to get constipated. For me, when I get overwhelmed, I tend to shut down. Flight or freeze are my trauma responses where I just tend to shut down. I hold everything in and I think I need to do it all by myself, all of the things all by myself. And that's a big reason why a lot of us end up here. So those are some of the common symptoms. Certainly you can have inflammation, you can get sick really easily, joint pain, not uncommon. Just like swelling in your joints is also not super uncommon. Losing your hair thinning, hair loss, skin getting thinner, skin getting drier. If you are prone to breakouts, once again, for me, when I do any detox work, when stress gets high, my skin is one of the first signs of this. Even if I'm eating super well, it'll also show up right on my face. So not uncommon with that. So those are just a couple symptoms. I would say for me, and once again, I say this for myself and having worked with so many people who have been in similar situations, this burnout just it feels like you're done. You're like, I can't do this anymore. I don't know how to get out of it. You feel like like you've dug yourself into a giant hole and you're just you're scraping the bottom of the hole, unable to get out, and you're making no progress coming out of this hole. And it can feel really daunting and dreary and for sure overwhelming are some of the biggest things that are for me as a talking here. So what do we do? So one of the biggest things that once again has helped me, has helped a lot of the clients that I've worked with, is the first of making a list of everything you're in charge of. And this might take some time. I did this at the end of last year, beginning of this year. And this was really eye-opening for me. I knew coming into this year, I wanted to make big shifts in the business. And I wasn't burnt out, but I was dealing with some other struggles at that time, from more of an energetic and emotional standpoint. I had some things come up. If you listen to some of the journey episodes, some of the psychedelic episodes, this will sound familiar, but last November I did a journey and a lot came up for me and shifted, and it was very challenging for me until March when I went down to Colombia and did my ayahuasca ceremonies and that situation, and then coming back is obviously a different story too. But this is really valuable. Make a list, and I would encourage you to separate this personally and professionally. What are your responsibilities? What are you in charge of? And for me, what I did when I last did this, and I've done this several times now. I've actually very recently done this once again, as the business is shifting here of, okay, what is everything that I do now? What do I do from a business standpoint? What am I in charge of? What roles do I take on personally? What roles do I take on? Am I in charge of meals? Am I in charge of certain meals, meal timing, meal prepping, grocery shopping? For me at the beginning of the year, looking at, what I do for my dog, financial responsibilities, handling taxes, checking in on financial forecasting, where we are financially, like what does all of that look like? House maintenance stuff. What are some things that we're going to have to do and prep and plan for? And what is my role in that? And what am I in charge of? And if you are burnt out, your list might be a little surprising. And I would encourage you to really take some time to make this list, be very honest with yourself of everything you take on. I don't have children. And most of the people I work with do have children. And so make a list, include everything that you do as a parent. And that alone is a really, really long list. And then once you make this list, I want you to really start reflecting, or the invitation here is to start reflecting. Okay, what are things that I absolutely have to do? What are things that only I can do? Then go through a second time on your list. What are some things that is easier for me to do and I can get help with? And this is a really, really big one. And I don't think I've had a single client ever, and I'm including myself in this category here, that takes on too much as a trauma response and also has a hard time asking for help. This is super common. If you think about when you need help and support, is that a comfortable feeling for you? What feelings, what emotions come up for you? Do you get that knot in your stomach? You're like, no, I can do it. I don't need to ask for help. Asking a parent, asking friends, asking family members, asking a significant other, asking your children. What are things that you by default take on because it's easier if you do? And what are some ways and areas that you can ask for help and support, even if it may be harder for someone else to do, and or you may have to provide a little support to teach someone or to get someone to a similar level to you in order to be able to take some or all of those pieces off of your plate. Once again, I've never gone through this exercise. I've never met anyone who's gone through this exercise who hasn't had a pretty significant list of things that they have chosen not to ask for help for, or the discomfort is there when trying to ask for help with certain things. And look, we are not meant to do everything by ourselves. And if you're single, I know there's some level of having to do this. For me growing up, I didn't have a super responsible parent. I grew up with an alcoholic who I took on the role of a parent, and I was forced into this position from a very young age. I left for college when I was 17. I was 100% financially independent at 19, and had to figure a lot of stuff out and had to do it so much on my own for so long that carried into my marriage and into my whole life, and not feeling comfortable in asking for help and what that looked like, and feeling weak, feeling uncomfortable, feeling super vulnerable, feeling bad for having to ask for help. And after my car accident, things really had to shift, and I did not have a choice. When I had all of my back procedures, I couldn't drive myself. I wasn't allowed to drive myself. My husband at the time had to work, and so do I have to pay him to take off work every single time that I have to go into the doctors and get these procedures done? And there was a lot of guilt with that. And then asking, sometimes his family, asking for some support and help and a ride, so much guilt with, and I don't want to get over it a little bit. And, where I am now, kind of coming out of a marriage and, into the position where I am now, it's a lot easier. And I will say the more I have gotten comfortable with asking for help, and this goes for business too. I ask my team for help. Hey, I'm doing this. I don't think I need to be doing this. This is not 100% where my expertise has to be. Where can I delegate? How can I train someone else to help me out with this or take it over? Can I ask, for me, I have a virtual assistant who's an amazing person. And she was my right-hand woman. She's the first person I brought onto my team and is still with me here, over 2 years later now. Just celebrated our over 2-year anniversary. And what is she capable? She's been working with me for years now, and she knows a lot, and she's been, helped the business grow so much. What can I ask her to help me with? Personally, what can I ask? I don't have a huge family. I don't have much of a family at all anymore. So that's not really an option, a total viable option for me. Friends, significant others, like, where can you ask for help? Even if it is uncomfortable, even if there's guilt that is present, it is so important that you not take on everything by yourself, because if you do, and I know so many of us, in my generation, I'm 34, almost 35, and I see this particularly with women 40 to 50, especially, although, I don't think there are particular lines where some of us are just predestined to have this, but we try and take everything on ourselves. We try and be this super human that do it all and be everything and show up. And once again, it's going to hit you at some point, because we're not designed to do everything all by ourselves all of the time. And this is where the burnout comes from. So step one, what is everything that you're taking on, and where can you start delegating? Where can you start asking for help and support? For me, a big help as well, I almost always have a team of people that are helping, and that team has changed, and sometimes I go back to certain people and bring in new people. But, for me, therapy, energy work, other types of healing work, talking through things, integration after psychedelic experiences with, people in that were out, different coaches, business coaches, other coaches. All of these things have brought me so much value and helped me fill up my own cup. And I think one of the important things to understand is, particularly with women, and and I just see this more with women than I do with men. Not saying men don't experience this, but so many of us continuously pour from an empty cup. And, one of the things that I really appreciated in some of the very first retreats that I attended from, psychedelic retreats is one of the big areas of focus was put everything down, ask for what you need. Nothing is too much. And this is a very particular space to be able to do that. And the environment was very facilitated around this. If you are hungry, if you need something to drink, if you need a blanket, if you need a pillow, if you need a hug, if you need to go walk around, if you want to dance, whatever it was, there was this open space to explore. And one of the things that I noticed was all of the first timers there, and this was all women, was every time we were asked, what do you need? What would you like? It took a while. And sometimes an answer did not come. And sometimes the answer was just, it was almost impossible to know because we're not used to that. We're used to being these caregivers and just pouring and pouring and pouring out and not allowing our own cups to be filled up. And one of the important things, if you are burnt out, is you need to figure out how to fill your own cup back up. And so releasing some of your roles and responsibilities, and then what can we add in that is going to help you fill your cup up? And this could be as simple as going outside for 5 minutes and sitting in the sun, or just sitting outside, enjoying the fresh air, enjoying, morning light, enjoying a patio, enjoying being around nature, whatever that is, that does fill someone's cup up. For a lot of people, for me, for sure, getting outside fills my cup up. I've recently taken up hiking as I'm doing my traveling, especially here in Colorado. There's, gosh, so many places to hike, so many beautiful things, all of the mountains here. So, for me, that really fills my cup up. And I'm noticing that as I'm doing this, I'm really trying to get out twice a week right now and doing some form of hike, whether even if it's a short one or more of a trail walk versus an actual hike. This really fills my cup up, and it really helps ground me into my body, helps me get out of my head, and just be out in the sun, which is great, in nature. Not, I take my phone for pictures, but I'm not on my phone. Often I don't have no signal in a lot of these places, so I don't really have a choice. And it really fills my cup up. For me, like spending time with certain people fills my cup up. I have a handful of friends that, these are soul connections for me. These are soul friendships where I'm with these people and I feel rejuvenated. I feel so good after hanging out with these people, one-on-one or in a small group, and I have friends where, they are friends for sure. And it's a little draining, in which case that does not fill my cup up. And there is a big difference. So it could be spending time with friends or family, and really start to note how you feel before and after you spend time with someone. And you will quickly realize who fills your cup up and who does not. So that's a really big thing. What fills your cup up? For me, another big thing, it's one of my main love languages is physical touch. So, if I have a partner, asking for cuddles, asking for a hug, for that physical touch when I'm feeling overwhelmed goes a really long way. When I'm not, getting body work done, a massage for me in particular, a 90-minute deep tissue massage with a good massage therapist, man, does that really fill my cup up quite a bit. For me, listening to music really also fills my cup up. So, and part of this is trial and error of what really does fill your cup up. But part of getting out of burnout is we have to fill your cup back up. And we have to find ways to fill your cup up. And this doesn't, once again, it doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be big things. What are small things? I know for one of my friends, just like, and I know this is the case for a lot of people, sitting outside on her deck with a cup of coffee in the morning, man, does that fill her cup up so, so, so much. So there's so many small things that are not expensive, like not super time consuming, that can fill your cup. So you have to start making a list and realizing what does fill your cup up. Another really big thing is you have to get a sleep schedule back in place, and you've got to find a way to disconnect. And a big piece of this and learning how to do this and establishing good practices, and this is really good for coming out of a burnout state and also making sure you're preventing that, is having boundaries. And boundaries can be really, really hard too. And where I always recommend starting is set boundaries with yourself first. When you set boundaries with yourself, when you're holding yourself accountable, you're also learning how to trust yourself. And for so many of us with more significant trauma history, it can be really hard to keep promises to yourself and to stay accountable. And a lot of this goes into trust and learning how to trust yourself, trust other people. And this can be really hard. If you're one of those people that has started habits so many times and quit every single time, there is likely a piece, I'm not saying this is all of it, but likely a piece of this is not trusting yourself and not being able to trust yourself, keep promises to yourself. And this is really important. And so start small. Some of the big ones that I have for myself, and once again, I do recognize I don't have children, so there is a little bit more flexibility in things that I have. But for me, a morning routine, gosh, is this so important. If I do not start my morning right, the rest of my day is not going to be the best. And I'm doing an uphill battle the entire rest of the day. So for me, and my morning practices change fairly regularly, but big things that are huge priorities for me in the morning. Eating breakfast pretty quickly after I wake up. This really helps my energy, cortisol, just appetite, blood sugar regulation, cognition. This goes a really long way. And I have a few staple breakfast options on my plate that are all high protein. And this is really important. I'll say if you have any sort of cortisol issues, blood sugar regulation, hormone imbalances, this high protein breakfast, and then by high, I mean minimum 20 to 30 grams of protein. Ideally, for most of us, more than that is also beneficial. For me, if I can get at least 25, ideally closer to 35 grams of protein at breakfast, the rest of my day is really set up way better. Some sort of meditation connection practice to myself, sitting in stillness, sitting in silence, just connecting to my body. Because once again, I do have a long history of anxiety and cortisol issues where I can get really easily stuck in my head. And so having this connection practice back into my body and getting out of my head a little bit goes a really, really long way and helps with clarity and energy, focus throughout the day. Another big thing, I like to take a walk in the morning. I like to get outside, even if it's a 5 or 10-minute walk, that is totally fine. But getting outside, once again, getting out of my head, getting into nature, getting the natural light in your eyes, obviously good for cortisol issues, circadian rhythm, for sleep, super important. Moving the physical body, super, super valuable. So doing a walk. And for me, I don't usually listen to anything as of right now. I'm either with someone or I'm by myself, and it's silence or casual conversation. But that walk in the morning, gosh, does that go such a long way. some sort of movement practice is also important. So, and for me, sometimes that's just a walk, depending on my day. Sometimes that's a gym workout. Sometimes that's a little bit of yoga or a little bit of stretching or mobility work. But once again, for me, getting out of my head and connecting with my body goes a really, really long way. So those are some of my non-negotiables in the morning and promises that I keep to myself that I know set myself up to fill my cup up first thing in the morning before I go into, and for me, I'm on the computer, I'm talking to people lots of the time and supporting people. And sometimes, I'm supporting through a lot of trauma healing, a lot of chronic issues. And so I need to be fully present and be able to show up. And that's really important for me in the business, and also for me as a human who is not supported in that way. It's one thing we really pride ourselves in this practice is showing up for people, and showing up for our clients and potential clients, and supporting in many, many, many ways that we know how to. So that morning practice really important. For me, I also, and this is something that is newer within the last year or two, is having a lunch break. Even if it's 30 minutes, I prefer an hour in the middle of the day to eat, to be able to decompress, to get off my phone, just to have a break. Super important. Same thing. I also have a cutoff time at the end of the day. And if you run your own business, I would really encourage you to set this cutoff time, because I know it's so hard. Your work is never done. There are always more things that you can be doing, more things that you quote unquote should be doing within the business. And this isn't just in running your business, although I do find it to be sometimes more complicated when you are running your own business, but this is really hard and our work is always there. There's always more. And so having this cutoff time of, hey, I am done at 6. I am not responding to messages. I'm turning off notifications. Gosh, just that goes such a long way. And, for so many, this kind of cutoff time, or a period of time where, hey, this is my time in the evening to myself. For many people, we've set, 20, 15, 20, 30-minute time blocks in the evening where, hey, this is my time. And you can do anything in that time, but you're not going to be on your phone. You're not caring for other people. You're going to do something for you. Once again, that could be a walk. You could read a book, take a bath, do some movement, watch a TV show that you like by yourself, something in the evening for you. Once again, you've been pouring out all day. You need to refill at the end of the day. So this is really important. So having a cutoff time, having a little bit of time to yourself, doing some sort of meditation, breath work, something, for me in the evenings, I like to have, especially working from, we'll call it home, although I'm moving around and traveling quite a bit, having this separation of work and personal life. And so I like to take 5 to 15 minutes at the end of my workday to decompress. I usually do some cord cutting, do some energetic work, once again, reconnecting with my body, getting out of my head, so that I can go into personal mode and not stay in this work mode all of the time, which once again, like as a business owner, I know how hard this can be. And it's not just for people who own their own business. So that's really important. And then having some sort of bedtime routine can also have so much value. And, what does this look like? For me, I know I need a couple hours to decompress at the end of the day. Even if I go out to dinner, with someone, I need a couple hours to myself. So I make sure I get at least an hour and a half. I really prefer 2 to 3 hours. However, that's not always feasible. But having at least an hour and a half to decompress, to relax, for me, like I wash my face, I take my evening supplements. There's not a lot. There's just a couple, like magnesium. I do take reishi right now, which is really good. I brush my teeth, wash my face, do a little bit of skincare work, change on my quote unquote work clothes, into some comfier clothes. And, once again, I might take a walk. I might watch a little TV with my blue light blocking glasses. I might play a card game, or, what, there's no right or wrong answer here, but just finding ways to decompress So this is really important. So you're setting yourself up for sleep because your body needs time to restore itself. And so this really comes with sleep. So this is a really important part of the healing process when it comes to burnout. Once again, I think when you're burnt out, starting your day, how you start your day is so important. So making sure you're starting your day off appropriately in a way that once again, fills you up, grounds you, centers you, whatever you need, fuels your body physically, mentally, emotionally, all of that kind of stuff. Limiting caffeine, which I know can be really challenging, can also be really valuable. Another thing, if you already burn out, once again, you probably have some cortisol issues. Adding an adrenal cocktail in the morning can be a really great idea. There's a lot of recipes out there. You can take Jigsaw Health has capsules and a powder. If you want to make it easier, I like their powder. For me, it's a little bit easier. So just put a scoop of the powder in a little bit of water and drink it. It doesn't taste the best. Forewarning if you're trying to go that route, but you can also do this there's a lot of recipes. If you Google recipes, there's tons of recipes. The most basic one is half a cup of orange juice, half a cup of coconut water, and then a pinch of a sea salt. Redmond's is the one that's commonly recommended. So I do think those can be good options, but this is going to help replenish your minerals that are depleted when you're burnt out, when you've got some cortisol dysregulation issues. Adaptogenic mushrooms can also be really helpful here. Cordyceps earlier in the day, really restorative, can help with energy and performance. And what it really does is it helps increase oxygen circulation throughout your body. So people can take that for like a pre-workout sometimes, and it's in several pre-workouts because it just helps increase the oxygen that flows throughout your body. Lion's mane for concentration can be really valuable. Electrolytes in your water can be really valuable. Once again, replenishing minerals. And I'll tell you one, there's a new supplement that I've been taking that is a game changer. And I know it is on the more popular side right now and starting to get even more attention, I think. And that's Shilajit. And I've been using the one from Organifi. Yes, we are partners with them. I've also been using Organifi for many, many, many years. And I'm a big fan of their products. So, this product's been out for a little bit, but this has been a real game changer for me. And what is it that's doing it? Is it all the trace minerals in there? Is it just a replenishing? But I've been able to back off on caffeine and feel good. Like energy feels really good throughout the day. I feel sharp and focused. So that can be a good option. And I don't think any of these things need to be taken long term. Adrenal cocktails probably don't hurt long term, but I don't think they're absolutely needed long term. And I don't think any of these supplements are needed long term unless you notice a big difference and choose to. For me, my cognition and focus and my brain power is really important. So I do take lion's mane on a pretty consistent basis. And that's probably something that I will continue to take just because I do feel a difference. I think it's really important. So, for me, and that's a personal decision, and I'm open and willing to spend the money for that particular supplement because it does work very, very well for me. So those are some of the big things when it comes to burnout. I'd say the last piece here, and this is a little bit more complicated, and this kind of goes into some of the things I've already touched on, is you really need to learn how to feel safe in your body. And this goes into nervous system regulation work. And having a regulated nervous system is not about being happy all the time or feeling peace or calm all the time. You're never going to feel that all of the time. And if anyone tells you they do, they're lying to you or they are heavily delusional. And this is really about being able to come into feeling peace and calm in your body on a consistent basis. For me, even if I have a very stressful day, at the end of the day, once again, one of the things I'm going to do is try to reconnect with my body, feel safe in my body, feel safe, supported, all of that kind of stuff. It is really, really important. And there is no quick fix for this. Starting with these promises and boundaries for yourself can go a long way in helping you do that. And then expanding that out into boundaries with other people. For me, I don't answer text messages uh, one, most people know not to text me. My most of my friends and I actually use a different application other than actual text messages. And most of my friends know too, I'm either going to respond right away or I'm going to probably take 2 to 5 days to respond to you. And that's because I have these boundaries. Part of it is sometimes I do forget to check my text messages again. But a lot of it is just boundary focus where I don't want to read things that could potentially overstimulate me at certain times. First thing in the morning, and I have cutoffs at night. And it's for me to uphold these boundaries. It's not for these other people to uphold these boundaries. They are my boundaries. So I need to set, for me, I set my notification settings and I have the vast majority of my notifications off. And that has been a game changer for me in being able to disconnect and reconnect with myself a little bit more. So that can be really helpful. Meditation, breath work, somatic practices, all of that kind of stuff, really valuable. Any sort of trauma healing work is going to be extremely beneficial. Energy healing work, super beneficial. Brain retraining, brain rewiring, super beneficial. For me, and I have found a lot of healing in using psychedelics as a tool. And that I do think it can be a very good option. I think it can be an accelerator for many people if you are taking the work seriously and doing not just taking the psychedelics, but using them as a tool the way that they're really designed to, in my opinion. And they can be a very valuable tool for lots and lots of people, whether that's in micro or macro doses or combination. So those are some things to look at. Also, I'll just say as a reminder, trauma therapy is different than therapy. So keep that in mind if you're looking to do more nervous system regulation work and you are looking for a therapist, it's different. And trauma therapists usually have different types of specialties, EMDR, hypnotherapy, somatic work. There's a lot of different modalities within that kind of broad spectrum umbrella of trauma healing and trauma therapy. So just keep that in mind. So those are all things. So those are really valuable tools when trying to come out of burnout. The other thing I'll say from a supplement perspective, not that I think supplements are the be all end all, however, they can be supported as you're doing your best to climb out of the hole here. Adding in some supplements in the evening that help you calm down, that help you relax. Magnesium glycinate's a really big one. I've really enjoyed reishi since I've added that in earlier this year. I continue to take that and I noticed a big difference. A full spectrum hemp oil for me makes a really big difference. And there's a lot of other things, GABA can be really good for the brain if you've trouble turning the brain off. There's one in our practice we use often, and I know we've mentioned it before, and that's cortisol manager. If you're waking up at 3 a.m., if you have a lot of those like racing, whipping thoughts, if you have an adrenaline rush, your heart, you wake up and your heart's racing in the middle of the night, that can be really valuable. The other thing, liver support can be really valuable during this time too. I'll say particularly baths for many people can be very relaxing. You're getting the Epsom salt, which means you're getting the extra magnesium. You can do, meditations and breath work during that. That can be your alone time, decompression time. I'd say castor oil pack is also really valuable. Definitely good for digestion, good for the liver, good for hormones. And for many people, it can help them sleep and sleep better. So just a few other things there. Now, so those are some steps in coming out of that. When we have been there and we have climbed out, you do not want to go back there. You know how bad it feels. And so doing preventative work, which is largely some of the same things here, is how can you prevent this? And what are some signs that you're starting to get there? For me, my sleep is one of the first things that's really impacted. And really the first thing is what I'll notice is I'll have a harder time falling asleep because my brain won't turn off. And then anytime I wake up to turn over, to go to the bathroom, whatever it may be, my brain immediately starts to go. And that is a very clear sign that I'm starting to go in that direction. Same thing with my energy. When I start to feel my energy really start to drop and I start to feel depleted is probably the best word. That is a clear sign that I'm headed towards that direction. And, for me, especially coming out of this year, there are some big things that I know will get me out of that. And so, one of the first things I always look at is how much I'm working. Have I started to cross over some of the boundaries that I have in starting at any times with work? And can I be a little bit firmer with those? What does my meditation practice look like? What is my connection practice to myself? For me, meditation it is a bigger thing for me than breath work or somatic work or anything else. So what does my meditation practice look like? Where am I trying to do everything? Am I trying to like cook all of my meals fresh? Am I trying to cook for other people? Am I trying to, cook every night versus doing some batch cooking? Am I overextending myself in the people that I'm hanging out with or how I'm helping people, personally and or professionally? And so really taking stock of where have I let some of these things slip and where am I overextending myself? Where maybe I need to pull back. And, I'm very fortunate that the group of friends that I have surrounded myself with are very understanding and they all understand this concept. And so, if one of us pulls away for a bit, it's usually because we need some time to just spend extra time on ourselves and we can't show up for someone else. Another thing that we'll often ask if we do have a lot going on and we'd like to share, maybe we need some, just someone to listen, or maybe we would like some advice or some reflections back to us is, hey, I've got some big stuff going on. Are you in a place to be able to hold space for me while I share this, or no? And respecting the answer no matter what it is. This is also great to do with a partner. If you are in a relationship with someone and you need to vent, you need to unload, you need to vent, whatever it is, asking first before you just unload has so much value and is also a very deep sign of respect for your partner of, hey, you're my person. I want to share this with you. I need to get this off my chest. However, I understand you're also going through a lot of things too. Are you in a place where you can just hold space for me as I'm processing, as I'm decompressing, as I'm venting these things? And you will be surprised at how your relationship changes when you just ask this question first. And it's really, I know for me when I ask and I say yes, I feel like I can really show up for that other person. And that also makes me feel really good and fills my cup up. So just some things to think about with that, looking at, what does your morning look like? What does your evening look like? What does your workout routine look like? If I start to overdo it on workouts, I will go into burnout, more of a physical burnout than anything else. So, look at that. What does your nutrition look like? Are you eating breakfast? Are you eating consistently throughout the day? Are you eating protein? Are you getting your veggies in? Are you going to low carb? Have you introduced a lot of sugar into your just like day-to-day life? All things to really think about. And if you can notice these signs early enough and take some time to reevaluate, how you're getting there and what's kind of going on, it really helps in preventing a full burnout. Now, I also understand that sometimes life happens and there's only so much control. For me earlier this year, there was a 2.5 month period where I didn't have a lot of control over the things that were happening in my life. And there was just a lot going on. And I felt myself going into a state of burnout. And a couple of things that really helped me, one, I had an end date, which is really helpful. And I know not always possible, but I did have an end date. The other thing is I doubled down on connecting with other people and asking for help, asking for support, just conversations with friends. And that really helped fill my cup back up. I also was getting a lot when I things started like a lot of physical, like it's like moving, packing, moving, all that kind of stuff, was very physical. Getting extra body work done was really valuable. For me, I started therapy again, really valuable, really helped me fill my cup. So all of those things were really important and really valuable and prevented me from going into a full burnout stage. The other thing, just as I'm wrapping up here, looking bigger picture here, and I know we talk about this a lot, and we have a whole thing on cortisol and the stress bucket, and go to our website, check that out if you haven't watched it already. But I can't emphasize enough that the more regulated your nervous system is on a day-to-day basis, the more room and capacity you have for life's unexpected stressors to pop up. And I'll tell you, for me right now, I am more regulated than I've ever been. My cup is fuller than it's ever been in my entire life. And there's also some really big things that I haven't shared publicly yet that are going on, that I'm working on, just changes, all good things, all positive things, and a lot of stress. And it's not impacting me in any way that has ever had. Yes, I have had some sleep, I'll say interrupted, not terrible sleep, just maybe a little not as restful sleep. I have felt it, in my head, in my body, in my brain kind of starting some loops. And I'm nowhere near burnout. I am not even close. Stress is higher, yes, and I'm not even close to any sort of burnout stage. And a big reason is because my nervous system is more regulated than it's ever been. And once again, this is not an overnight process. And the more regulated you are, and if we think about, I'm just going to go over this super quick. If our stress levels are a bucket, and we imagine a bucket, we have, just like regular stressors, like life stressors, work, family, all that kind of stuff. But then we add things like, a dysregulated nervous system, a lot of trauma, maybe nutrition isn't the best. Maybe we're eating a lot of sweets. Maybe we're sleeping great. Maybe we're drinking a lot of caffeine. Maybe we're not hydrated enough. Maybe we're not moving our bodies at all. All of these things really start to add up. And then if we try and add these unexpected stressors of life that come into this bucket, you're going to overflow. And so the more room you have in your bucket by addressing these things that you can control, and this is where a lot of their deeper internal work that comes into play, that limits a lot of our things in our bucket, takes things out, the more room we have and before we overflow. And so that, once again, the more regulated you can be, and this has taken me many, many, many years to get here. And, there are lots and lots of layers to this, but starting small, starting with something to help your body feel safe and reduce the stress to help you reconnect with yourself goes such a long way. And then you just add on to this over time. And over time, you'll start to realize that you feel different. You feel more relaxed. You feel safer. Stress doesn't impact you quite as much, and your sleep isn't disrupted as much. You're not as emotionally sensitive to a lot of things. Not saying emotions are all good. They're all welcome and they are all good, but you're not going to be quite as sensitive to a lot of these shifts and changes, which is, good, because it's because by default, your body feels safer. So the nervous system regulation work is so, so, so important, especially if you find yourself with a history of burnout, currently burned out, or trending towards that direction. So take this all into account. Thank you for listening. I hope this was really helpful. I know this is really a big topic, and I just kind of scratched the surface of it as best as I could today. And maybe I'll do another episode either by myself or with someone else to dive into this even more. But you're not alone. You don't have to do this alone. And there are tools, there are strategies to help you get out. And as always, if you need help and support, we are always here. We offer free consultations, literally free, completely for free. And you can always check out the link below. You can always go to our website, trifectacollective.net. And you'll see a link to book them. We'd love to chat with you and help and support you in any ways that we can. So thank you so much for joining. I really appreciate it. Shannon will be back. So I appreciate you listening to me talk here for an hour. And as always, like, subscribe, follow. If it resonates, a 5-star review means a lot to us and goes a really long way. And thank you so much for joining, and we'll see you next time.